Hello everyone, my name is Akal and I am a somatic therapist. If you'd like to find a little bit more about the work I do, you can check out my website, which I have posted down below the video. Also down below the video is another website, which is called vaultoftheheavens.com, and you can go there to get your birth chart, which will have your nakshatras as well. And you want to specifically look at the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, which are, in my humble opinion, are the most important placements. So today's nakshatra, which is the last of the nakshatras, is really interesting because I guess in a lot of ways when I tend to think of last of anything, I tend to think of a death. That is not the case here. This is almost embryonic energy. This is energy which, I guess the best way to look at it is that it indicates the ending of one cycle and the anticipation of the birth of a new cycle. So, Revati Nakshatra is, like I said, it's quite interesting. It's sattvic, or all about clarity and harmony and balance on all three levels. So, at its depths, it is neutral mind, and that's how these folks function. It is ruled by Mercury, and that's kind of where I want to start the discussion on this nakshatra, is with Mercury. So Mercury is, they call it the messenger of the gods, they call it the messenger of the sun, all sorts of things. And essentially what we're thinking about when we're thinking about Mercury is, fundamentally and on sort of physiological level, we're looking at the nervous system. It's essentially what allows the energy to flow in our form. Another way to kind of look at it is, not only is it kind of the brain and the nervous system, it's also the intellect, and it's also communication, and it's also sometimes considered like it rules technology, and it rules all these ways of communicating. Now, why is communication, technology, the intellect, all these different things tend to be wrapped up in Mercury? Well, the reason is it has to do with the closure of the space between individuals. That's the function of Mercury, is to close the gap between human beings. So there's a strong unifying power that goes along with Mercury. Mercury is also really interesting because you can kind of look at it in the sense of what's the difference between wisdom and intelligence. Mercury being intelligence, and consciousness itself is where the wisdom lies. So I tend to think of this again as the difference lies in the experiences one has. So intellect could be just knowledge. Knowledge is great, but knowledge isn't everything. Knowledge isn't much of anything, in fact, unless you actually apply an experience to it. And then when you apply experience to it, you get depth. And when you get depth knowledge plus the experience equals wisdom. At least that's the math I use. So another thing about Mercury is that it's quick, it's fast. Now, this is like I said, this is really interesting in this particular nakshatra. They take all these into account. Again, keeping in mind that this is the last nakshatra. This nakshatra is ruled by a god called Pushan. Pushan is the nourisher. And I kind of think that this nakshatra is a bit more like a seed in some ways, meaning that this is a seed that is not germinated yet. So it's the seed that has the potential for the next step, for that creation and that creativity. This placement is very creative. Again, it's very intelligent, it's very creative, and it's all those things. However, its arrow isn't pointed towards material things. It's not pointed necessarily towards life's accomplishments and the obtaining material things. That's not the point here. So the animal associated with this placement is the elephant, and I think this kind of points out a little bit about the disposition of these individuals. It's a very service-oriented disposition. It's really very much about the others. Now, the elephant is interesting because with the elephant, you got this very large animal, and it's grand. All this grandeur, all this substance, and again, elephants are intelligent, and there are all these different things. What's kind of interesting about the elephant is even though it has all these representations, in and of itself, it doesn't care. And that's why elephant is really appropriate for this placement. It is a very grand placement. It's godlike, in fact. But again, it doesn't care. And that's kind of why it is so incredibly unique, and why this placement is, in a lot of ways, it's very much, like I said, it is very much kind of godlike in some regards. It's sort of non-self-conscious. However, on a personality kind of level here, what we end up seeing are, how should I say this? So they're very growth-oriented. Everyone I've known who's had this in their chart, there's a sense of a growth-oriented nature, meaning they achieve something and then it's to the next thing, and it's to the next thing, and it's to the next thing. It's kind of like they're traveling from one progression to the next progression to the next progression to the next progression, always growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's a bit like walking up steps. So each time they walk up the step, they move to a higher place. As these folks are kind of making this walk, this movement through life, and again, you keep in mind that this is very much a kind of a spiritual progression, and that's how I'm explaining most of these nakshatras, is from the spiritualization perspective. One of the things that I found most interesting is if you look at the padas. The padas are the 4 divisions within each nakshatra. This particular nakshatra has Jupiter in the first pada, Saturn in the second, Saturn in the third, and Jupiter in the fourth pada. So what we're looking at is a process of, let's hypothetically say this is a linear progression. It's a linear progression through life. Early on, there's a certain religiosity. There's an attraction to external religion. There's an attraction to external spiritual things. So there will be a movement towards those things. However, there's a humbling that happens here. These folks are denied material things. They are, material attachment rather, and they are forced into a kind of penance. That is because of the influence of Saturn in the second and the third padas. So in the fourth pada, once again, we get expansiveness. Or the sort of, I like to think of this as we shine from the inside out. So again, Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is contracting. So after these folks undergo their contraction period, there's a period of massive expansion. And that is only going to happen if they cultivate it, meaning they're functioning through their life path authentically. Meditation, yoga, all these different things allow us to perceive what is authentic and what is not, to perceive our inner authority and how we're choosing to move out into life versus external authority, which is dictating and guiding, which may not be correct for us individually. So an external authority would be like a boss, et cetera, et cetera. So this expansiveness that occurs towards the end of this progression, this is when they become, like I said, very godlike. And the path here is moksha. So this is about the movement towards enlightenment. So I'm going to go ahead and read you a little bit of Yogi Bhajan's comments on this particular combination of gunas. And again, the gunas are the fundamental energies of existence. That is sattvic in this particular case on all levels. So Yogi Bhajan says, quote, "This is a most mystical and masterful projection. There's depth, dimension, and sensitivity to the divine or power you serve." So the power you serve. And again, not everyone is like necessarily religious or spiritually inclined, so they're not always seeing the I guess, the power which they're serving as being God, right? So Yogi Bhajan says this. He says, where's it at here? All right. He says that for the self, the power it serves is the soul. For the saint, it's God. And for the worker, it's the boss. So again, these folks, the energy, well I guess what all this implies is passivity. It implies, I don't want to use the word feminine, but I guess I will. But feminine in this particular case, and in describing sort of fundamental basic energies and polarities of the universe, doesn't necessarily mean female. It means feminine as in receptive. So being Sattvic on all levels, one of the ways I kind of sometimes characterize Sattvic energy in my mind is as a flow through. Energy is simply flowing through if these folks are functioning correctly. Otherwise, what you can see with this is a lot of indecision, indecisiveness. The tendency is to go back and forth between this and that. So another, I guess, symbol that's associated with Revati is the fish. Fish are kind of, this falls under Pisces too, which I should mention, which is kind of like two fish swimming in opposite directions. Also under the sway of Pisces is the Jupiter energy here. So again, more religiosity, more expansiveness, more interest in spiritual things. So this fish, and again, you see, where do you see fish? It's, Christianity. It's always seems to be associated with Christ or Christos. Now, the fish is fast growing. I guess it's not the case for like a sturgeon or something, but generally speaking, a fish is fast growing. Let's see what else. It's associated with fertility. It's associated with the ability to expand from one to many. So again, there's the theme is to nourish, to feed, to expand. And those are the words here with Revati. So something else, now go ahead and read a quote here from Bipin Bihari's book. The quote is, Revati moves up to the cosmic expanse, boundless duration, and preserves the seed of future growth and splendor in the infinite sea of quietude and beatitude. So, again, this idea of a seed keeps coming back. And again, the seed here isn't the completion of the plant. The death has already occurred. The plant has died, it has dropped its seeds. Nor is it the growth. So this is really interesting energy. It's kind of like the cusp. It's the cusp of what's to come, but it has a ton of creative potential. So I want to go ahead and go into some of the negative characteristics associated with Revati. So characteristics that are not so good are psychological disappointment and feelings of inferiority. The feelings of inferiority, I was trying to read into this a little bit, and maybe those of you watching this video will have a better clue how this could possibly be. But the feelings of inferiority, as I see it, have to do with a passive nature. It has to do with the passive nature and has to do with a culture that we live in, which is very materially focused. These folks may not be overly interested in a material achievement. And again, they're very interested, again, because it's ruled by Mercury, in closing the gaps between human beings through service, which may not grant them the material things they want in life. And again, because they're going back to those padas, all that Saturn energy, which is telling you don't get too attached. Saturn slaps their hand every time they try to reach out and grab something that's going to give them material pride. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and show you the exercise that's associated, how I made the connections between projection 27 or the master and Revati Nakshatra. And something I need to mention real quick before I show you how to do all this. the master meditation here associated with this, it's hard. It's really difficult to do. Yogi Bhajan did this, I believe, on purpose. This particular exercise is so powerful because it stimulates the nervous system and creates a strong pull up towards the heart. Because from here is where you get the navigation, you get the field, right? So if you're connected to the field, to your navigation, what you're able to do is you're able to transcend, again, Mercury rules this, which is neutral or neuter in nature. So meaning it may have a tendency to go back and forth between positive and negative, between this and that. So what this does is and again, Mercury's fast. So this will steady the nervous system to an extreme degree and pull all the energy up to the heart so that they then can feel that expansiveness and they can enhance their sensitivity in a centered way. And again, because these folks are very, 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 very sensitive. So with all that said, I'll go ahead and show you how I made the connection. All right, here we have Yogi Bhajan's book called The Mind. In the back of this book, we have a chart. This is the chart for the universal mind, or Chitta. And we have Tamasic, Rajasic, Sattvic, which are the three fundamental energies of all creation, which exist in different proportions. And what we're seeing here is a flow chart between the most, subtle of the elements, which would be ether, to air, to fire, to water, to earth. And you'll notice what we got is increasing density. So Revati is sattvic on its basic level, on its impersonal mind, which is buddhi. And you can see what it says here. It says it assesses, discerns, judges what is real and true, and which is a massive quality of Revati. It's about discernment. On a secondary level here, we've got the neutral mind, which it says observes, judges, decides, senses reality, identity, purpose, meaning, blah, blah, blah. And finally, on the tertiary level or the third level, we have more neutral. So what's flowing out into life is the movement towards harmony. So we have number 27, the master. So what we do is we go ahead and flip through the book. And here we have projection 27, the master, assessment of personality overlords, and their projections to be controlled. See, they use the word controlled. So I never really liked that word much, but to be honest with you, what they're doing is this meditation is attempting to pull the energy into the center channel. Which is kind of non-dual. So it's about, not ridding, but to center one's energy so you can observe or be objective to the duality that we all exist in. So the mantra is really difficult mantra to remember. Again, Yogi Bhajan really worked hard to make this one tricky. Again, because it's supposed to cultivate a master. And this exercise is done for 11 to 31 minutes. So in the next segment, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this exercise. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and teach you projection 27, the master. So full disclosure, once again, is that this is difficult. So if your interest in doing this meditation is to achieve some degree of mastery, is to still your nervous system, it's to build towards that, then this is a great meditation for you. If you just want something simple, a quick fix, essentially a magic pill, sorry, it won't work. This is hard. Now, the thing I will suggest to you is that you want to build to kind of a perfection with this meditation. However, you want to make sure that if you're building towards that perfection, you don't want to overdo it. Some of us benefit quite a bit from pushing ourselves a little bit more. Others of us, that additional push actually creates more tension, more issues. So you got to figure out what your capacity is, in terms of like how hard to push. So what I usually suggest is like initially to start off with kind of an abbreviated version of this. So meaning, let's say you do, 3 recitations of the mantra, or 4 total rather. And this will make sense when we get there. So let's say you do 4 recitations of the mantra instead of 12 to start off with. Again, because we're going to be using the arms a lot here. And because we're using the arms so much, that energy naturally gets kind of pulled upward. And what it does is it'll create an agitation within the nervous system, which initially and in the short term feels like an agitation, feels like discomfort, etc. But in the long term, once you practice this, once the endorphins kick in, once the nervous system adjusts and adapts, which takes 40 days, then what you'll notice is a nervous system strength like you wouldn't believe. I can get through essentially 2 cycles of this before it beats me. So we're looking at about 16, 17 minutes I can handle this. So if that gives you any reference point, I've been doing Kundalini Yoga for about 15 years. So again, granted, I'm not practicing this particular exercise all the time. So let me go ahead and go over the mantra first. The mantra is a complex, just like this entire meditation. The first 3 words, and again, anytime you hear certain words, you want to pull in your navel point. So if you hear ek, that's EK, you want to pull in your belt line. And I'm going to put the words for this mantra right up on the screen so you can see what they look like. So feel free to pause the video and look at those words when you need. So it's the first 3 words, ek, ong, O-N-G, which resonates up here, and kar. So it's ek, onkar. And then it's sat, nam. So once again, sat, nam. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to motivate the sound to rise up from the hara. So it's from here that the sound rises up. So 3rd set, karta perk. And perk is P-U-R-A-K-H. Again, I might be mispronouncing some of these. During my teacher's training 15, 20 years ago when we did these exercises, it just became kind of an automatic thing. So oftentimes I think people mispronounce things kind of automatically with the group. So in this particular case, I believe that Karta Perk sounds about right. But one thing you can do is you can look up this mantra. It's called the Moola Mantra. You can look it up on Spotify, on Pandora, any of those sort of music services, and there very well might be the chant available to listen to, probably on YouTube as well. So then there's Nirbo, Nirver, a cow mort. So those are the next bits. Then it's Ajuni, Saibang, Gurprasad, Jap. Jap is once again kind of from down here. And then it's Ad Sach, that's S-A-C-H. Jugad Sach, Habi Sach. And you notice there'll probably a tendency, once again, making those Sach sounds to pull in the belt line. And then finally, Nanak Hose Bi Sach. So altogether, it sounds like Ek Onkar Satnam Katapak Nirvo Nirver Kaumot Ajuni Saibangar Prasad Jap Ad Sach Shugad Sach Habi Sach Nanak Hose Bi Sach. And then you repeat. So what I would suggest initially doing is just practice the mantra. Get the mantra down, it won't take too long. And then once you get into the exercise, you'll be much more firm, much more steady. So in other words, don't try to put everything together at once. So the next part of this exercise, I'll go ahead and show you, is the Mudra. So arms are straight out, parallel to the floor. Right hand over left. So you're going to do 11 recitations of that mantra with your hands in this position. So once again, it's
Ek Onkar Satnam Kataparak Nirvo Nirver Kalmot Ajuni Saibang Gurprasad Jap Ad Sach Shugad Sach Habi Sach Nanak Koho Sebi Sach. And so then what you'll do after you do 11 with your arms in this position is you're going to raise the hands up above the head with the palms together. You want to make sure you pull that spine up straight. Gentle neck lock. You want to push those sit bones down. And then you're going to do one recitation of the mantra with the palms together over the head. And then after that, you'll lower it back down and repeat. So 11 and 1. 11 and 1. And again, I've only made it through personally 2 rotations through. I just did that maybe 15 minutes before this video. Something else, it doesn't specify the drishti or the eye position, so I guess you have choices there. One of the choices is the eyes rolled up and approximately looking at the brow point and then towards the center of the head. And the other option is having the eyes at the tip of the nose. So if you put your eyes on the tip of the nose, what I suggest you do, because sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable, is you want to exhale all the air out first. Then you want to roll your eyes up and to the left. Inhale a deep breath. Retain the breath. Roll the eyes up and to the right, retaining the breath. Roll the eyes directly up, retaining the breath. Then exhale all the air out with the eyes up, retaining the breath out. Roll the eyes down to the tip of the nose. Inhale, exhale. Then you have your eyes in the right position. I think that's all I wanted to mention about this particular exercise. Again, what we're doing here is we're really creating a great deal of nervous system stimulus. This is really powerful stuff. So be gentle on yourself. Take your time. Learn the mantra first. Then work in the hand, the drishti and the hand positions. And again, you want to do this you want to build to 11 to 31 minutes of this whole exercise. And it is absolutely transformational if you can do it. So with all that said, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you very much.